We have the concept of the empty cup, the person who doesn't have an authentic self and is essentially possessed by the other, or possessed by ideology, or possessed by insanity or garbage. And there's one more thing that can possess a person, and frequently will, because in the absence of some kind of a self, an authenticity, a moral philosophy to guide you, it's very easy to fill a human being up with the pursuit of pleasure. This in and of itself is one of the most, in my humble opinion, damaging, corrosive, and distorting elements of modern life. People have been over-pleasured. And you'd say, you mean physically and sexually, their lusts have been multiplied, their desire for food has been multiplied, their desire for luxury has been multiplied. Yes, I do mean that. But I think the greater perversion is that people are pleasured intellectually. I mean they are pandered to. Never before have we been able to avoid so much of that which would contradict our worldview and our philosophy, and never before have we been able to just consume on tap nothing but that which confirms that which we already believe. That also is pleasure. That intellectual vanity, that pandering to your worldview is also a pleasure. It's an addictive, corrupting, distorting, degrading pleasure. Now, from Kierkegaard to Dostoyevsky. Wowee. I was accused recently of being monkish. I've had this hurled at me as an insult 3 times by 3 different men in my life, adult men, older than me. And they become angry and frustrated with me because occasionally I'm in relationships and I live with somebody and it goes nowhere. And then I return to what is effectively a pretty monkish life. You know, I work, I read, I go to the gym, I develop my ideas, I shoot videos like this. I'm quite happy. I'm quite emotionally regulated, and you know, it's not amazing, it's not like super joyful, but it's okay, it's sane at least. And I get criticized for that, for living a monkish life, and I'm told there's no future in that. I'm like, oh, okay, so maybe there's some ideological poison I should be guzzling down instead that you have, because your life is so wonderful and I should live like you. And I was reminded of this a couple of days ago. And then as I'm making my way through the Brothers Karamazov, which I've determined to not read faster than I can consume it. It's really, really good. It's an amazing book, but it is a multi-course Russian meal. And I don't think you can guzzle this one. I think you need to sit in between your courses, you digest what you've been given, because he serves up a lot. And the food is rich with Dostoyevsky. There is a lot. I mean, there's stuff here that has changed the way I view life, the world, everything. And the Kindle tells me I'm 40% of the way through the book. And I'm like, there's 4 or 5 points here where this guy is helping me to think things that I've never been able to think before. One of the main characters is Father Zosima. He's the beloved mentor of the best brother in the book, the kindest, the sweetest natured brother in the book, the youngest, Alyosha. Father Zosima is his mentor, and he wants to convey wisdom to Alyosha and to the other young monks before he passes away. So he starts to talk about what being a monk means. And it's really strange for me because I just had this thought about being accused of living a monkish life, and I was like, I am kind of a little bit isolated here. I probably should be socializing a bit more, and I will. I'll get around to it. And then I got to this chapter and I was like, oh wow, he's actually talking about what it means to live a monk's life. Father Zosima talks about how the Russian people have begun to deride the monks and tell them that they're lazy and they're useless and they're not contributing. And he defends, well, Dostoyevsky defends the monk's life through the mouth of Father Zosima. And he says, the spiritual world, the higher part of man's being, is rejected altogether, dismissed with a sort of triumph, even with hatred. The world has proclaimed the reign of freedom, especially of late. But what do we see in this freedom of theirs? Nothing but slavery and self-destruction. Much like Zizek's question, yes, you have your freedom, but the freedom to do what? For the world says you have desires and so satisfy them, for you have the same rights as the most rich and powerful. Don't be afraid of satisfying them and even multiply your desires. That is the modern doctrine of the world. In that they see freedom. And what follows from this right of multiplication of desires? In the rich, isolation and spiritual suicide. In the poor, envy and murder. For they have been given rights, but have not been shown the means of satisfying their wants. They maintain that the world is getting more and more united, more and more bound together in brotherly community, a sort of globalism, if you will, as it overcomes distance and sets thoughts flying through the air. He wrote this in 1880, before radio and internet. Alas, put no faith in such a bond of union. Interpreting freedom as the multiplication and rapid satisfaction of desires, men distort their own nature. For many, senseless and foolish desires and habits and ridiculous fancies are fostered in them. They live only for mutual envy, for luxury and ostentation. To have dinners, visits, carriages, rank, and slaves to wait on one is looked upon as a necessity, for which life, honour, and human feeling are sacrificed, and men even commit suicide if they are unable to satisfy it. Over a century before Instagram was created. We see the same thing among those who are not rich, while the poor drown their unsatisfied need and their envy in drunkenness. But soon they will drink blood instead of wine. They are being led on to it. What is that? 37 years before the Bolshevik Revolution, he foresaw it. I ask you, is such a man free? He goes on, for how can a man shake off his habits? What can become of him if he is in such bondage to the habit of satisfying the innumerable desires he has created for himself? He is isolated, and what concern has he with the rest of humanity? They have succeeded in accumulating a greater mass of objects, but the joy in the world has grown less. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Cheers.